Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Woods, and for this assignment, I'm going to be discussing classroom discussion as a research-based effective teaching strategy. To begin with, I just want to give a short overview of some of the high points that I'll be talking about in this presentation. First, the success of any teaching strategy is measured by the way it impacts student achievement. This is something that Marzano and Hattie agreed upon. Classroom discussion is a highly effective teaching strategy. Educators must foster an environment that allows for effective classroom discussion. Classroom discussion promotes student growth, and educators must model what effective communication looks like. On this slide, I'll be discussing John Hattie's table of effect sizes. Effect sizes are the best way of answering the question, what has the greatest influence on student learning? If the effect size is 0.5, this signifies that the level of student achievement is a 1-grade leap. A student who would make a C in a control group would then be making a B with the experimental group. If the effect size is 1, this signifies a 2-grade leap. So the same student in the experimental group would be making an A rather than a C in the control group. Anything with an effect size of 0.4 or greater is an effective strategy that should be implemented in the classroom. Over on the right, it shows some of the table and their effect sizes, and you can see that some of them are a whole lot higher than the others. Classroom discussion has an effect size of 0.88. So if a classroom has effective communication, that can have a significant impact on a student's grade and their understanding. On this slide, I'll be discussing Marzano's strategies. These are the 9 strategies that Marzano felt were the most effective in teaching. So the first is identifying similarities and differences. The second is summarizing and note-taking. Third, reinforcing effort and providing recognition. Fourth, homework and practice. Fifth, non-linguistic representations. Sixth, cooperative learning. Seventh, setting objectives and providing feedback. 8, generating and testing hypotheses. 9, questions, cues, and advanced organizers. So like I mentioned before, classroom discussion has an effect size of 0.88, making it a highly effective teaching strategy. Classroom discussion is a powerful tool in education. As long as students are carrying the cognitive load, classroom discussion is a very effective learning tool. So that means that it's important that we are making our students do the bulk of the thinking and helping them with their higher level thinking. We can't be giving students the answers to things before they have had the opportunity to really think about it. According to Hattie's table of effect sizes, like I mentioned, classroom discussion has an effect size of 0.88. And anything with an effect of 0.4 or greater is an effective strategy that should be implemented in the classroom. In order to have effective classroom discussion, there are some things as educators that we need to make sure are present in the classroom in order to foster a meaningful classroom discussion. Students and the teacher should be on the same page. All the students should be able to understand what you're talking about when you're having the discussion. You don't want some students left out that have no idea what you're talking about or that maybe just haven't reached the point that you're talking about. Dialogue should be open and honest. Neither party should be sidetracked. You should be staying on topic. Students should feel safe to speak openly. Students should carry the cognitive load. Teachers should guide discussion. And teachers should make sure that everyone is engaged in active listening. I found an article that outlined some studies done on the way that effective communication affects classroom discussion. They found that students exposed to dynamic communication techniques performed up to 20% better on standardized tests compared to those in more traditional settings. They found that effective communication boosts student engagement. 70% of students who perceived their teachers as approachable reported feeling happier in school. Two-way communication fosters academic growth. Classrooms promoting positive interactions reported a 25% decrease in behavioral issues. When students feel that their teachers are concerned about their individual abilities, homework completion rates increased. Students who are engaged in classroom discussions tend to participate in collaborative efforts after graduation. On this slide, I'll be discussing some more about classroom discussion and effective communication. I looked at the Freyer model to kind of make an outline for this slide. Effective communication is the process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, opinions, knowledge, and data so that the message is received and understood with clarity and purpose. Characteristics of good effective communication include active listening, feedback, body language, nonverbal communication, respecting communication, and opinions of others. Types of communication include peer groups, classroom discussion, and one-on-one communication. Lectures with no feedback, refusing input, speaking over others, and not being clear are not effective methods of class communication. The information on this slide goes along with what I spoke about on the last slide. Some modes of interaction in a classroom. So there can be communication going on or discussion between teacher and student, teacher and two students. So that'd be like a small group with the teacher being involved. Students discussing amongst themselves. Students discussing amongst themselves in small peer groups. The teacher discussing with all students in the classroom, and then all students of the classroom being engaged in a discussion. There's some more ways of discussion are peer feedback, class debates, think, pair, share, group discussion about a reading, group brainstorming, building on others' ideas, and expanding on the lesson. So I'm teaching currently child development and early lifespan development. And a major part of that is having class discussions. The students become very engaged in those because they want to express their opinions. Nature versus nurture is always a big debate that we have that the students get into, and then they like to talk about parenting and they like to debate what they feel is the best method of parenting. So I found that discussion has been very, very effective in my classroom. As educators, we must be mindful of the types of questions we're using with our students. We want to make sure that we are meeting our students' abilities with our questions. We don't want to ask questions that are not advanced enough for them, that don't promote higher level thinking, and we don't want to ask questions that are too difficult for students that are just going to end up confusing them and then making us sort of have to give them the answer anyway. That can be frustrating for both parties. In order to promote higher level reasoning, we must use why, how, and which is best types of questions. As mentioned before, students must be doing the bulk of the thinking or carrying the cognitive load in order to learn the material like they should. This expands their critical thinking skills. Educators must match the types of questions they are asking to the abilities of their students, and everyone must be on the same page, which those are things that I've mentioned before, but they are very important. These are some final takeaways that I want you to take from what I've talked about today. First, classroom discussion is an effective teaching strategy. like we talked about, anything with on the scale of zero point 0.4 or higher is an effective teaching strategy and should be implemented in your classroom. Class discussion is at a 0.88, so that can significantly impact the grades our students are making and how they're understanding the content. In order to have classroom discussion, we must foster an environment that allows our students to speak freely and openly about subjects. You don't want an environment where students feel judged or they feel like they can't speak up or they feel like you're not going to understand where they're coming from, or maybe that they're scared to talk about where they're at in their understanding. So you have to make sure that your students feel safe in your classroom. Higher level questions are necessary to promote understanding, and there are many ways to foster effective communication within a classroom. Thank you for taking the time to look through this presentation and to listen to me, and I hope that you gathered a lot of information about classroom discussion and why and how it should be implemented in your classroom. Thank you.